They said God was love, but they forgot to mention that he also comes down in fire. And it's not a metaphor, it's literal fire. Thunder, dark clouds, a trembling mountain. The scene in Exodus is so intense it would make anyone reconsider their lukewarm faith. Here, on Mount Sinai, dark spirituality reaches its peak. God doesn't appear as a gentle breeze, but as a sacred hurricane. And meanwhile, the people tremble. Literally. This isn't the story of comfortable faith. It's the story of faith that burns. Moses isn't just a leader. He's the only one brave enough to climb into the smoke while everyone else stays behind. And when he comes back down, he brings something heavier than stone. He brings the words of God himself, written by the divine finger. Do you know what that means? That the Bible isn't a collection of good ideas. It's a covenant sealed on a mountain, with blood, fear, and glory. And the most shocking part? While God is writing the tablets of the law, the people are sculpting a calf. If you think you know the story of Moses, wait until you see how it really unfolds, with spiritual warfare, idolatry, thunder, and a question that still echoes today. Are we worshiping God as he is, or as we want him to be? Picture a mountain shaking, wrapped in dark clouds, lightning splitting the sky, and trumpets sounding out of nowhere. It's not a horror movie scene, it's Mount Sinai, the stage of one of the most overwhelming manifestations in the Old Testament. God didn't appear in blooming gardens, but in the midst of natural chaos, with fire and thunder. This theophany didn't come gently, but with a roar that made even the priests tremble. It's in this setting that Moses and God meet, and there, dark spirituality takes on real contours. The people of Israel were paralyzed with fear. They had come out of Egypt, Israel's long-awaited liberation had become reality, but now they were facing a God who didn't fit their expectations. A God who can't be summarized in Instagram quotes, but who reveals himself in smoke and a thunderous voice. And that says a lot. It says that God and fire walk together, that faith and obedience don't come from comfort, but from the impact of a presence that burns from within. On Mount Sinai, there's no room for manipulation. The Bible and thunder walk hand in hand. It's curious that today, so many people want a domesticated God, one who only says yes and validates their plans. But the God of Exodus isn't like that. He descends with authority, writes with his own finger, and demands reverence. The Bible, when explained seriously, shows that true spirituality begins where human control ends. Want to feel God? Go to the Sinai of your life. And be careful, maybe he won't whisper, maybe he'll shout. Because before handing over the tablets of the law, he needs to make sure your heart is ready to listen. So now, who dares climb that mountain when everyone else is fleeing? While thunder echoed and the mountain burned, the people backed away in fear. And who walks toward the fire? Moses. He wasn't the strongest, nor the most eloquent, but he was the most obedient. In the intense biblical narrative of Mount Sinai, while the people built distance, Moses and God built intimacy. That's where dark spirituality becomes experience. Moses climbs the mountain when no one else dares to even come near. That says something profound. Sometimes, God only reveals what he carries in the heights to those willing to climb alone. Climbing Sinai wasn't just a physical act. It was a symbol of faith and obedience in action. Moses walked toward the unknown, toward the presence that terrifies and transforms. He entered the dark cloud where God was, and it didn't destroy him, it marked him. That's the price of carrying the divine voice within. Want an example? Think of people who isolate themselves to seek clarity, a spiritual retreat, a deep fast, prolonged silence. Those are ways of climbing the mountain. And the higher you go, the more you hear. The more you understand, the more you burn. But the lingering question is, are we willing to climb? Or do we prefer to see God from a distance, outsourcing our experience with him? Moses chose to walk where fear was greatest, and because of that, he became the bearer of God's law, the intermediary between heaven and earth. His journey teaches that, to carry the tablets of the law, you must first face the thunder. And what happens when someone touches divine fire? That's when the most mysterious writing in all of the explained Bible appears. It wasn't a scribe. It wasn't Moses. It was the very finger of God that wrote the tablets of the law. Think about it. The creator of the universe engraving words into stone atop Mount Sinai, surrounded by thunder, fire, and fear. This wasn't a list of prohibitions. It was an eternal covenant sealed with smoke and glory. In the Old Testament, this scene marks more than a set of commands. It marks a sacred alliance, where God offers direction after the deliverance of Israel. Before demanding obedience, he had already offered salvation. And that changes everything. The 10 Commandments are like tracks for a train. They don't limit movement, they prevent disaster. They reveal God's character and show the way for his people to live as a holy nation. Today, many still see the commandments as a prison, but in truth, they're walls that guard against the fall. Want a practical example? Honoring your father and mother isn't just a family value. It's a foundation for healthy relationships in all of society. Do not kill. Do not covet. That's a manual for peace. God's law points to a life where heaven invades the everyday. But only those who see obedience as a loving response, not as punishment, can understand that. Interestingly, God only gives the tablets after the people have already been freed from Egypt. That says something profound about divine logic. Grace comes before requirement. Biblical theology is clear here. The commandments are a consequence of the covenant, not a condition. And Moses, he comes down with stone in his hands and glory on his face. But while he brings the voice from on high, in the camp below, something dark begins to take shape. The people, in panic, decide to craft their own god. And what happens when faith mixes with fear and impatience? That's when the golden calf enters the scene. Just imagine, Mount Sinai still smoking, thunder echoing in the distance, and the people of Israel down below crafting a golden calf. It's surreal, but it's real. It's the raw truth of the explained Bible. The same people who saw the sea part, who heard the thunder of God's voice, are now making a God they can carry in their arms. This reveals something profound. When fear isn't accompanied by intimacy, it turns into superstition. They wanted a domesticated, tangible God, not the God of Exodus who speaks from within the fire. This rupture marks one of the most intense moments of the biblical narrative, the clash between faith and escape. This episode carries a shadow, a dark spirituality that still haunts many hearts today. People who prefer a God made in their own image, one who accepts offerings but doesn't demand transformation. The golden calf still lives on in modern versions of idolatry. Status, money, comfort, even a light faith that never confronts. And look, all of this happened at the foot of Mount Sinai. While Moses and God were sealing the covenant above, the people below were making pacts with their own desires. A brutal contrast, the finger of God writing in stone while human hands mold gold. When Moses comes down and sees the scene, he breaks the tablets of the law, not out of rage, but as a sign that the covenant had been betrayed. Here, faith and obedience are tested in a visceral way. Faith between the lines doesn't skip over these uncomfortable moments, because it's in them that the soul is truly confronted. How many times have we also molded our own little calves, because God took too long? Because his silence seemed unbearable? Mount Sinai isn't just a place of fire and cloud, it's a mirror where we face our fragile faith. And when the covenant is broken, is there still redemption? Enough with weightless, fireless, truthless faith. The story of Moses on Mount Sinai isn't just about a man and a mountain, it's about me and you. About what we're doing with what God has already written. Are we living as those who received the tablets of the law? Or as those still dancing around a modern golden calf? God's finger still writes, but are we still reading? Are you ready to take your faith seriously? To stop running from the thunder and start climbing the mountain? Israel's deliverance was just the beginning. Now it's your turn to decide whether you'll live as someone who's been set free, or as someone still bound to the Egypt of the soul. If this message stirred something in you, then subscribe to the channel Faith Between the Lines, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs a deeper faith. Here, the Bible is explained with intensity, truth, and no filters. Ready to keep going on this journey?